Hey, it's Olly, and in this video I'm going to give you a quick tip which might be helpful if you struggle to find good educational resources or textbooks in the language that you're learning. So recently I was traveling through Japan and I was in Osaka and I went into one of these big bookshops. It was either a Junkudo or a Kinokuniya, one of the really big bookshops in Japan. And I went to the language section, which I always do. My routine is the same in these bookshops. I walk in, I usually get a coffee, but they don't usually have cafes in these places in Japan. Anyway, I go straight to the language section and I look for the Japanese textbooks to see what they've got. And almost every time, like clockwork, I am bitterly disappointed because the Japanese language material that is published in Japan by Japanese publishers is about as dull and boring as it gets. They have a very academic approach to writing textbooks for foreigners to learn Japanese. It's the same throughout the it's the way things are taught in Japan in general. And anyway, and they got this very weird kind of typography and the way that they lay books out, because obviously you've got English and Japanese writing is different. They also lay out the page very differently, and so you kind of have a lot of odd kind of white space and spacings between letters and things like that. And so you look at these textbooks to learn Japanese, and they're very kind of they're not nice on the eye at all, but they're also extremely academic and take a very kind of scholarly approach to the language. And so the same thing happens every time I walk to the language section. You could have a huge shelf of books, hundreds of books, and I look through them, and I'm pleasantly surprised if I find one book that I think, oh wow, I would really like to learn with this stuff. Okay, there's always something wrong with it. I produce short story books, right? And so I always look for these things, but they're terrible. Whether it's like the JLPT, the Nihongo no Ryoku Shiken, the Japanese exam, like those kind of practice books. Oh, it just makes me want to shoot myself. And I'm always bitterly disappointed. But anyway, this trip to Osaka, what I decided to do was actually go to the English learning section of the bookshop, which was twice as big. Okay, and so I was looking for books for Japanese people to learn English, and it was a totally different story. I don't know why, but for some reason, maybe it's a recent development in the industry in Japan, but they have got a lot of really great content. For example, so I bought this whole collection of screenplays, right? So you've got movies like these kind of classic movies like Notting Hill and The Godfather and stuff like that. They've got the entire thing, the whole script and screenplay for the movie written out in the English, but with a Japanese translation to help, because this is an English learning book, right? So they give the Japanese translation. Basically, here's the point. They've got lots and lots of really interesting material for learning English, but it works both ways. You can, if you are an English speaker learning Japanese, you can use that same material because you've got the translations there and you've got a lot of this kind of just raw material to work with. So if you struggle to find books in English intended for an English-speaking audience to learn your target language, instead, if you go to the country, go into a bookshop and look for material for native speakers of that language to learn English, and chances are, I don't know what it's like in other languages, but chances are, if it's anything like Japanese, you're going to find a huge range of resources that are much more interesting, much more wide-ranging, and will be motivating and interesting for you to study with. So that's your mission for the next time you find yourself in the country of the language you're learning. It was a revelation for me, and I spent tons and tons of money on just really cool English language learning books for Japanese people, and I can now use them myself to study Japanese. So I was pretty happy. So yeah, let me know if you ever use that and it works out. Thanks for watching. If you would like to get more videos like this, hit subscribe. If you know anyone who's living abroad and is learning the language of that country, send them a link to this video. They might just appreciate the tip. And thanks for watching. See you back in the next video.